Hi everyone, this is Sonal here from Connect Meditation, and I welcome you to this podcast. Thank you so much for your presence. I'm so glad that you are here, that you took out the time. I'm so thankful and so deeply appreciative of your presence here today. Thank you so much. As you could guess from the topic, what do women most desire? Is going to be about what women want. But I also am going to go a little further, and I feel that this doesn't apply only to women, but it could apply to any gender, in the sense that this is a quality or this is something which we will come to know once I kind of go a little further, which could be important to any one of us in that matter. In fact, when you will talk or you'll even see inside of yourself, this could be something which perhaps for you also is extremely important. What it is and what are the implications of it for our life, because I feel that whenever we hear something or which we feel it could be of value, I think it's important, or it could really benefit us if we could also look at what are the underlying messages in that particular teaching, in that particular story, in that particular information that we have come to know, how we can apply it in our life so that we can get positive results. Because at the end of the day, it's the results which matter, right? So when you will come to know, I'm sure you will see that it can apply to anyone, irrespective of gender. Even though the story is titled, the podcast is titled like that, because the story that I'm going to share with you is on similar lines. But that's something, like I said, regardless of gender, applies to all of us. So without further ado, let's get into the story. I find this story very, very inspiring. It's called King Arthur and the Loathly Lady. So King Arthur was a Celtic king, and he grew up to be one of the most famous rulers of Britain. And the many, many stories that one has, and if you go on the net, you search for him, and you'll find many, many, many stories. This is one of those about him. King Arthur was on one of his expeditions, and he encountered an enemy knight who had a lot of dark powers and could cast a spell over King Arthur. So that's the story, starts off with that. Now, of course, this created in King Arthur a lot of fear and terror, as he felt powerless against the spells the knight could cast on him. So the knight said to King Arthur that I will not cast the spell and I will give you your freedom, let you go, but you have to return in 7 days and answer a question. And the question is, what is it that women most desire? Now one can only think of how is King Arthur going to get out of this mess. So King Arthur agreed, and he went around asking everybody, women mostly, smart guy that he was. He asked the girl herding the geese, the all-wife, the great ladies, but none of their answers rang true. The final morning, he realized that he had to go back to the castle, and he had a heavy heart. He has to submit to what would happen and really die. That was the end of it. But deep in the forest, he encounters Lady Ragnell. And Lady Ragnell is covered with jewels, but she's the loathsome lady. So the description was, her face was red, her nose runny, her mouth too wide, her teeth yellow, and hanging eyes, bleary, and so on. And so he encounters her and is kind of horrified by her. But she says, Sir Arthur, your life is in my hands. So he asks, what do you mean by that? She says, I know the correct answer, but you must grant me one wish if I am going to tell it to you. And he agrees. So she says, my wish is that I marry one of your knights. Again, King Arthur is horrified as to how can he give away one of his knights in marriage to this loathly lady. In fact, the knight she wants is Sir Gawain, who is his own nephew. So he has to ask Sir Gawain. So he goes back and asks him. Sir Gawain agrees. He says, as your friend and to save your life, of course. And so they return to the woods. Sir Arthur tells the lady, okay, I agree to it. What's the answer to the question? And Lady Ragdale says, it's not beauty, it's not wealth, it's not power. But what women desire beyond all else is to have sovereignty. We will come back to what this means in a little while. So the answer she gives him is that women, what they most want is sovereignty. Arthur goes to the enemy knight and he says, I got the answer. He tells the answer and he is right because he was given the right answer. And so the knight has to release the spell. And here is what happens. Soon after, Arthur, Gawain and some of the knights ride into the woods to keep the promise, find Ragnhild and bring her to court. Upon sight, some of the knights were sickened, some even insulting. But Sir Gawain looked steadily at the lady. Something in her pathetic pride and the way she lifted her hideous head caused him to think of a deer in the hound's sight. Something in the depths of her bleary gaze reached out to him for help, and he reprimanded the others, and right then he knelt before her and asked her for her hand in marriage. She offered him a way out, but he was steadfast, and she accepted, saying, You shall not regret this wedding. They married in the chapel. All came forward to offer words of congratulations, but they could barely speak, so horrified were they by Sir Gawain's fate. Ladies came and touched her fingertips as briefly as might be, but could not bear to look at her or kiss her cheek. Only Cabal the dog came and licked her hand with a warm, wet tongue, and looked up into her face with amberized eyes that took no account of her hideous aspect, for the eyes of hounds see differently from the eyes of men. At last it was over, and the couple were led to their chamber. There Gawain sat in a deeply cushioned chair and gazed at the fire, reluctant to glance in the direction of his bride, until she said softly, Gawain, my lord and love, have you no word for me? Can you not even bear to look my way? Gawain forced himself to turn his head to look her way, and then sprang up in amazement. Between the candle stands stood the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. He stared speechless in wonder, and finally finding his tongue asked her, How could this be? I am under an enchantment, and because you have taken me for your wife, it is partly lifted, but only half. Listen, for now lies a hard choice before you. I can be fair by night and foul by day, or foul by night and fair by day. Decide which you want. So what do you think? As listeners, this is a question to you. What do you think Gawain chose, or what do you think he said? Well, Gawain thought for a while, pondering the events that led to this moment, and it dawned on him what answer he must give. Whichever way it is you who must endure the most suffering, and being a woman, I am thinking that you have more wisdom in such things than I. Make the choice yourself, my love, and whichever way you choose, I shall be content. She cried out in joy, My lord, you are as wise as you are noble, and true for you, you have given me what every woman genuinely desires, the answer to the riddle, sovereignty over herself. You have broken the spell completely, and I am free to be completely my true self by day and night. And Gawain and Ragnhild knew great happiness together. And Gawain was a more gentler, more kinder, more steadfast man with Ragnhild than he had ever been before. So that's the story. So what is the takeaway out of this, which I want to emphasize on for now, is the word sovereignty. So sovereignty, what does it mean? Sovereignty, well, according to the dictionary, it's freedom from external control. Freedom. Now, we can have all the freedom from external control, but if in our minds we are still in bondage, then we are in bondage. We can have control from relationships. We can get free from relationships, from situations, from places. We can go to a different place, different country, different people in our lives. And sometimes, yes, that is the need of the hour, and sometimes we have to take those hard decisions depending on, of course, our path of least resistance, wherever we are, our unique and beautiful path of least resistance. And whichever choice, sometimes we may want to make that choice, but we don't do it. And I respect each one of us wherever we are and whatever choice one makes, unconsciously or consciously, because it's our unique and beautiful journey. But at the end of the day, even if we take freedom from relationships, from places, from situations, at the end of the day, what is happening in our minds is what actually influences our emotions, our feelings, our life. So to be free, inner freedom, in my opinion, is the most important. And inner freedom is something which can have repercussions in any situation, for that matter, that once you realize that you can be free in your mind, then, and if you've practiced it enough to a place where you are steadfast in it, then you can actually go out in the world and be in it, but not of it. There's a saying that you can be in the middle of situations and yet have that distance from them because you are at a place of strength. Of course, there are many, many techniques and there are many, many layers to this journey, and it's a work in progress for all of us. Of course, there are people who have gone into different stages of this understanding, and there are some teachers in the world, even though there are few, but there are teachers who live it 24/7, 365 days a year, because they embody it. They're there in that sense. But for many of us on this journey of inner work, it's a work in progress, and I think it's important to accept where we are, to honor where we are, and to go accordingly as per our unique and beautiful path of least resistance whenever we want to and we feel ready to. Here I want to share a couple of techniques about inner freedom. These techniques are techniques which, depending on the resonance that you feel, you could adopt them. And let me know in case you do. If you have any questions, how it is going for you, if you want to write in, please feel free. My email ID is sonal@connectmeditation.com, SONAL @connectmeditation, which is one word, CONNECTMEDITATION.com. I would love to hear from you. And so now moving on to the techniques. The first which I would like to share, of course, there are many more techniques and many more approaches, but these are the couple that I want to share for this particular podcast. So the first one is from the Yoga Vashishta. The Yoga Vashishta is a manuscript which was written many, many years ago in India. This is a manuscript maybe thousands of years ago by sage Valmiki. And in that, there's a technique which is mentioned about, so when you're in your sitting meditation, or even when you're otherwise you have thoughts coming during the day, but especially in your sitting meditation, and you, in mindfulness and in yogic meditation, the way we look at thoughts is that you're practicing not the thoughts, you're not thinking the thoughts, you're practicing the awareness of those thoughts. So you're just watching, you're being the witnessing presence of your thoughts. And if breath is the object of meditation for you, of course, there can be many more objects of meditation, but say your breath is your object of meditation, just like you watch your breath in, out, and then thoughts come, you get distracted, which is, of course, part of the process, absolutely natural. It happens. It's not called a monkey mind for nothing. So that happens. And when that happens, sometimes we start thinking the thought. If we become aware, and just like we are watching the breath, if we can also start watching the thoughts. So in yoga, we say, in yogic sciences, we say, you're not your thoughts, you're the awareness of your thoughts. So there's a difference. So instead of so I'll give you an example, one of my favorite examples. Say you're angry, and you're really, really angry. And I ask you, how angry are you? And you say, every part of me is angry. And I say, yes, 99% of you is angry and 1% is aware that you're angry, and that's how you know you are angry. That awareness is what we're practicing. Just looking, just seeing it, witnessing presence. In Sanskrit, which is this ancient language in India, now also it's spoken, of course, around the world. There are many, many people who speak it. It's called the Sakshi Chaitanyam, or the witnessing presence. Just awareness of your thoughts, not thinking, but the awareness. So say, I'll give you, how would it show up in your meditation. So you're watching the breath, and then a thought comes. So you start thinking the thought. Then you realize that, you want to come back to the breath. Again, you come back to the breath. In the moments that you are, and this happens initially, it comes only later point of time that you start even watching your thoughts. So initially, you start thinking them. And say you come back to your breath. There will come a time wherein the moments that you spend on the breath get stretched. Maybe 1 second to 2 seconds to 3 seconds in your meditation of 15 minutes. Some days it will be 0 seconds. Then again you go back up as per your unique and beautiful journey. And say there comes a time where you're spending considerable amount of time, stretching of that time, which is just on the breath. So in the moments that you're focused on the breath, you're not thinking your thoughts, because in a particular moment, you can only think a particular thing. So in that moment and the series of continuous flow of moments, say you're only on the breath, there are no thoughts. And then there comes a time when the breath also begins to blur. And when that breath begins to blur, you've transcended the breath. You transcend, that does not mean, oh my God, my tongue is rolling. That does not mean that you have, the breath is not there. The breath is there. But you have moved into that place of strength, that inner refuge, that inner sanctuary. And now from that place, not only can you watch your breath, but you can also watch your thoughts without, if the thoughts are uncomfortable, without getting overwhelmed by them. So you're not thinking your thoughts, you're the awareness of your thoughts in that sense. And that is what we are going to be practicing. Now, in that place that you are, if, for example, it's difficult for you, of course, especially in the beginning stages, there could be times when it's difficult to do this. One technique which comes in from the Yoga Vishishta is telling your mind, that mind, what I'm interested in, you cannot give me. So I'm going beyond you. I'm going to the place of inner refuge, wherein I can watch you. What is a mind? A mind is a heap of thoughts. That's what is happening in the mind. So you are just watching your thoughts. You're not thinking your thoughts. And so just telling your minds a lot of times that, mind, please be silent. What I'm interested in, you cannot give me. I'm going beyond you. And when you say that, a lot of times you'll notice that the mind becomes silent, or at least you are able to move to that place of silence. The mind doesn't become silence, but you are able to move to the place of silence, that stillness deep within. I'm not an expert on religion, but one of my favorite psalms is, be still and know that I'm God. So what does God feel like? God feels like calm, love. So at that place of strength, that's a frequency, it's a vibration, it's a feeling. That's your place of inner strength, which is available to you at any point of time. That is what you're looking for. And the mind, of course, like I said, is not called a monkey mind for nothing. So the mind can't give you. Mind will still be there, but you are at a different place, altogether. So that is the first technique from the Yoga Vishishta. The second part of this technique, which could help you, which comes from that when you are being the witnessing presence of the thoughts. So say, for example, as you progress onto your meditation journey, there comes a time where you're able to even watch your thoughts, just like you're watching your breath. Just like the witnessing presence of the breath, you're the witnessing presence of your thoughts. Now, as you watch your thoughts, so they're coming, arising, and then you will see they're falling, and another thought is coming. Then that's arising and falling, another thought is coming. And you realize that they're absolutely impermanent. You thought that it was very fixed, but actually, on an average, research says that a person thinks 50,000 thoughts, 50,000 thoughts a day. And for some of us, it could be even more than that. So you realize how impermanent they are. They're not fixed, as you said. So sometimes we could get a little overwhelmed in a particular situation, the way we are thinking about it in our minds. But then you realize that, they're so impermanent, this too shall pass. I will think some other thought after some time. So it's just telling yourself about your strength. So when you are the witnessing presence, if you can notice the connection between what you are thinking and your body, what's happening in your body awareness. Now, that body awareness is given a lot of importance in mindfulness because your body can actually be a friend on this journey. How will you, a suggestion that I could give is how you could do it is, so for example, if you're feeling a happy thought, a thought of which is feeling good to you, just notice how it feels. Maybe your heart feels lighter. Maybe you feel a little lighter in your beingness, in your stomach feels relaxed. It could also be that, say you're thinking a thought which is a little overwhelming. Now, if you can, at that particular point in time, just turn your attention, your awareness to what's happening in your body. Maybe there is a tightening in your chest area. Maybe there is a tightening in your stomach. Maybe there are butterflies in your stomach, that kind of a feeling. Maybe there's a pain which is there in your body, a pain which surfaces up. Now, again, my suggestion would be that if the thought is too overwhelming and you feel that no, you can't just watch it, you can always come back to the breath. You can always take a break from the meditation. My suggestion would always be to be kind and gentle with yourself while on this journey. This is a journey of love, of compassion, of kindness for yourself. So just doing it as for you. Thankfully, in meditation, there is no competition with others. It's just you and you. Depending on this thing, due to beautiful path of least resistance, if you feel ready to, you may like to stay in that place of pain. Again, sometimes it's too much. Maybe there's a prescription medicine you're taking, you could take that. Maybe there's an ointment that you usually put, maybe you could consider doing that. And then coming back to the meditation whenever you feel ready to and want to. And or you could do it even before you start the meditation. But say you are there and it happens and you feel ready to be the witnessing presence of that particular overwhelming thought. As you are watching that thought, which is clearly uncomfortable to you, if you could just see the connection between that thought and what's happening in your body. In many situations, you will see that whatever pain is surfacing, whatever tightness is happening, that in itself will start to dissipate. And of course, if it doesn't dissipate, we have lots of beautiful techniques, like you might like to put your hand on your heart area, just to kind of tell yourself, it's okay, it's okay. Peter Levin has a beautiful techniques. He's done a lot of work in trauma healing, especially with veterans, and beautiful work that he has done in his lifetime. You may like to check out his website and techniques that he has. There are these beautiful suggestions that he has that you might like to just give yourself a hug. And when you put your arms around your body is like a container. So at a physical level, you are telling it, it's okay, it's safe, it's fine. Whether it's a little child or an adult, I think it's a self-soothing technique that one could, have. So again, like I said, doing it as per your beautiful and unique path of least resistance. But if you can see the connection between what you're feeling, what your thoughts are, and what's happening in your body, many times you will see that it dissipates. And as you progress in your practice, you'll become so proficient at it just by watching that the way the sensation in the body is arising. Sometimes it'll change in its intensity. Sometimes it'll change in its location. And then you realize it's impermanent. Just like the thoughts, just like the feelings, this is also impermanent. And this too shall pass if it's uncomfortable. So because of this, the clinging to or pushing against response can reduce in us. Not that we won't have likes and dislikes, but what I'm talking about is clinging to, so for example, if there's a relationship in my life and I feel that, oh my God, if this person's not there in my life, what will I do? And then I cling in desperately, and literally the relationship starts to feel suffocating in that sense. So that clinging to response starts to come down, because you are like, everything is ever changing. It's so transient, it's so impermanent, in that sense. So why cling to something? So you like that person, or you like a particular thing in your life, but yet you don't cling to it out of desperation. That grasping feeling kind of reduces, because you realize the impermanent nature of your thoughts, of your feelings, of your sensations in that sense. And whatever may be happening around you externally in the situation that you are, at the end of the day, the way you perceive it is important, Like, for example, say you're having your morning breakfast and you're in love. Now the breakfast seems so lovely. The toast, if you're having toast, you're having yogurt or fruits or whatever it is that you're having, the coffee, the tea, everything seems so good. It feels like you're walking on air. And imagine a scenario where the same breakfast you're having, but you're sad about something. Now that same breakfast, everything seems so blurry. So it's the same thing, same food, same situation, but what is happening within you, the way you're perceiving, that influences what you're feeling. So just to be kind and gentle with yourself, to be compassionate with yourself, as per your unique and beautiful path of least resistance, if you want to and if you feel ready to, you may like to consider just being the witnessing presence of that and seeing the connection between that feeling, that thought, and the sensation in your body. As you do that, you will realize that it's also impermanent. So why cling, and also why push against it? Because this too shall pass. Why push against something? This too shall pass. So what happens is the moment you find that place of ease, even if it's a little bit, it's a breather to yourself. It's like this breath of fresh air that you yourself have given yourself. Imagine how empowered you would feel that you did it yourself, You soothed yourself within. And of course, as per your unique and beautiful path of least resistance, sometimes we do need to reach out for help. And I think if one feels ready to and one wants to, that's your guidance coming from within, that yes, we want to take help from somebody whom we trust, somebody who we feel can help us out in that particular thing. And sometimes we might be able to do it on our own. So these are techniques that you may like to consider. And of course, there are many, many more, and which we'll keep sharing from our side at Connect Meditation in these podcasts or the posts that we put up. So these are the couple of things that I want to share. I hope they are of value to you. I would love, in case you do decide to try them, how it goes. If you have any questions, anything that you feel challenging, and you might like to share that, or something that actually went well for you and you would like to share that, maybe we could celebrate it together. And every step, whether it feels challenging or an achievement, either way is part of the journey. You're always on the path. It's something that we can always accept and honor wherever we are. So that's about it from our side for this particular podcast. I thank you all for your presence. Thank you so much for your time. It's so wonderful to be here, to be expressing all these things, and hopefully you will find them of value. And take care. And again, like whichever part of the world you are in as you listen to this, I hope you have a lovely day or a wonderful evening, depending on the time zone that you are in. Lots of love, lots of happiness to you. And thank you once again for your presence and for joining us today. Bye for now.